This is the Ball Talk Podcast, presented by Nachos and Analysis.
What's going on, Tiger fans? Today is Thursday, February 16th, and welcome to the third episode of the Ball Talk Podcast, presented by Nachos and Analysis. I'm your host, Drew Archer, and let's talk some ball. We have real softball to talk about. We have real Clemson baseball to preview. So, really excited. Thank you for joining me for episode 3. Thank you to all of our listeners for the first 2 episodes. We had great guests, Coach Bakich, Coach Rittman, and Tyler Corbett from the baseball team. So really appreciate them. Really appreciate y'all, the listener, stopping in. So before we get into the meat of today's episode, what we expect, we're going to review the weekend that was for Clemson Softball. They start the season 6-0 for the first time in the young program's history. We're going to discuss some Clemson baseball. They opened Friday against Binghamton. There is no poll this week because with Valentine's Day, with the Super Bowl, and a busy work schedule, I unfortunately did not get a chance to do that. I realized today as I'm setting up here to record on Wednesday the 15th that I never put a poll out. So there will be no Twitter poll to discuss this week, but I figured with it being opening weekend for baseball, with softball having their first home game as they host the ACC Big Ten Challenge, we'll talk a little weather. As I'm recording now, Wednesday, it's a little rainy and maybe some rain in the forecast Friday, but Saturday and Sunday look to be beautiful weather. So we'll discuss all of that. But let's talk some softball. As I mentioned off the top, the Tigers started the season 6-0 for the first time in program history. The Tigers opened the season in the FIU tournament, outscoring their opponents 44-7. So you could not ask for a better start. And the ladies are hitting on all cylinders right now. They started the season in various polls. Some they were ranked 9th, some they were ranked 10th. They are now up to 6th and 7th nationally. Only one other ACC program ahead of them, and that's Florida State. They have had double-digit hits in all 6 of their first games. So this team, we talked about expectations last week. This team, they're ready to meet those expectations. This team looks like one that hates the way the season ended last year in Oklahoma. So, great start. They got a step up when it comes to competition with the teams that they're hosting this weekend. We'll get into that in a little bit. But you still have to play the games. You can't help who's on your schedule. Tigers didn't care who was on their schedule. They went in and demolished them, like we said, 44-7, outscoring their opponents in the weekend series there. And the Tigers won the FIU tournament. So after the weekend, some Tigers receiving some national honors by NFCA, Valerie Cagle and JoJo Wyatt. Cagle with a .625 batting average, 4 doubles, 2 home runs, 4 REIs, a 1.25 slugging percentage. From the circle, she's 2-0 with a 0 ERA, 16 strikeouts, just 1 walk, and shut out an opponent and has pitched 13 innings. So Cagle, she's doing what's expected out of her, what we as fans have come to see out of her the last few years. And then Hyatt with a .778 batting average. She had 2 doubles, scored a run, 8 RBIs, and a 800 on base percentage. So shout out to those ladies. They kicked the weekend off with a spark. A little review for the weekend. They started as we were dropping episode 2 last week with FIU. They won 10-1. They won that game in 5 innings. Friday, they faced Georgia State with an 11-2 win. And then Saturday with the Kangaroos from Kansas State, they won 8-1. Then Saturday and Sunday were left up based on how the schedule shaked out, who won, who didn't. They had Saturday afternoon, they faced Georgia State, winning that game 11-3 in 6 innings. And then Sunday beat FIU 4-1. So in 2 games with FIU, outscoring them 14-1. In 2 games with Georgia State, outscoring them 22-5. So the Tigers putting up a lot of runs, getting a lot of hits, and it was a big weekend for the Tigers. Now they came back to South Carolina, but they did not have their first home game yet. They did play in Greenville, however. I hate that game was on Valentine's Day. Had reservations with the wife at the highly regarded Waffle House in Clemson. And for our listeners, if you're looking for a casual, nice experience, check out the Waffle House next Valentine's Day. They take reservations. They come out with a Valentine's Day menu with some steak and a 3-course meal. We did not go with a 3-course meal. We couldn't go to Waffle House and not get the All-Star Special. But all that to say, that's what I was occupying my time with while the Tigers were demolishing Furman 10-0. This was the Tigers' first trip to Furman. They have previously faced them 5 times. The Paladins have never beaten Clemson, but the Tigers win by a score of 10-0 Tuesday night in Greenville. And that's their last road game before they open up the season at McMorris Stadium this weekend. So we'll get to that here in a second. But with the addition of Tuesday's game, Clemson is outscoring its opponents 54-7 in its first 6 games of the season. And we mentioned this is the first time. Granted, it's a new and young program, but still, first time in program history, the Tigers start the season 6-0. So what can we expect this weekend in the ACC Big Ten Challenge? The Tigers are scheduled to play both Northwestern and Ohio State. They're going to play both of those teams twice. The Tigers will face Northwestern Friday at 3 o'clock and Saturday at 3 o'clock. And then they'll face Ohio State Saturday night, 5:30, and Sunday at 12:30. So that's what the weekend looks like before they start their midweek game with Georgia at 4 o'clock. So we'll look at a little bit about each of these teams. So far on the season, Northwestern is 2-2. They've beaten South Alabama and number 6 Texas. So a big win there for Northwestern. However, they've lost to Missouri and dropped a game to number 13 Tennessee. In those 2 losses, which happen to be their 2 most recent games, so they're on a 2-game losing streak. In those 2 games, they've been outscored 12-1. A little look back to last season to get a better idea of what kind of program we're looking at. And we're looking at one that made a deep run last year. They defeated Clemson early in the season, 7-0 at the SPC Elite Invitational. So all-time, Clemson has a losing record to Northwestern. They did finish the season losing 2 straight games in the Women's College World Series. So that is, we've talked about the expectation for Clemson getting over that hump and getting out of the Super Regionals. Northwestern was able to do that last season. So you're bringing in a team that has experienced those big-time games, and don't let the 2-2 record fool you. This team is going to come in and be prepared. This is not the competition that the Tigers have seen so far this season. So, as we mentioned, Northwestern at 3 o'clock, both on Friday and Saturday. Saturday is going to be a doubleheader for them. After that game wraps up, they're going to turn around and play Ohio State. They, too, are 2-2 on the season. They've beaten Boise State and UMass. And they've lost to Georgia They lost to Georgia 11-4. That's Clemson's next midweek opponent. They've also lost to UCF. Last season, the Buckeyes finished 36-17. They lost to Nebraska in the Big Ten tournament semifinals, and they made it to the Knoxville Regional, did not get out of the regionals there. And then looking ahead to Georgia, who we just mentioned, this is going to be a big test for the program. They're 5-0 currently heading into the weekend. They've beaten UCF, Ohio State, Boise State twice, and UMass. Last season, the Bulldogs finished 43-18. They defeated Clemson 3-2 and fell to Duke in the Durham Regional. So the Lays have started off hot. They've got 6 wins under their belt. These next 3 opponents in 5 games are going to give you an even better idea of what this squad is going to look like this year. I'm also really looking forward to it. Granted, I will be out at Doug Kingsmore Stadium all weekend for opening baseball. But one thing I'm excited about is to be able to watch this team. There's nothing more frustrating than last weekend trying to follow along on the live stats, them updating incorrectly, taking a while to update. So Faxon Childress, who actually called Tuesday's game at Furman on ESPN Plus, he reached out to me trying to get the inside scoop, some stats and stuff for him to talk about on the broadcast. And I started off my message back to him like, hey, I can throw you some stats and tell you what the numbers say. I haven't had a chance to lay my eyes on this team, see what's going on, what they look like, what the feel of this team is. Based on the scores, you can tell this team is jiving. They play well together. They're having fun. But I'm looking forward to this weekend with it being a higher caliber opponent coming in that we're going to actually have it on television and video to where I can actually go back and watch it and see with my own eyes, because the numbers are great in baseball and softball. They're numbers games, but to actually watch and see what this team is doing and what they're about, looking forward to having that available. So really big weekend in Clemson. As we mentioned, we're going to transition to baseball here in a few minutes, but a big weekend, opening weekend for the home stretch for softball and the baseball team. So there is going to be a lot of fans in town. I anticipate SO Club being packed, having a hard time finding some parking. I think I mentioned last time there was a guy cowering in the corner with a chicken tender basket because there's nowhere to sit. So I think there's going to be a lot of Tiger fans in Clemson watching some baseball and softball. So one thing that is hard to come by are tickets for this softball team. Their program is started off like a rocket ship, and with the size of the stadium and the demand for the fans, it's been hard to get in there. So one thing that I like that the university did, they held back some tickets because they pretty much sold out with season tickets and single game tickets already. But this year, I don't know if they've done it in years past, but they've held back some tickets for walk-ups at the game the day of. So if you happen to live in Clemson, you got some free time and want to walk up and try to get some tickets, there are some still available. So give that a shot. I'd love to see you out there. I know that McWhorter Stadium is going to be packed and lively. That's one of the cool things with the proximity to Doug Kingsmore Stadium and vice versa. When something big happens, you can tell from the other stadium. So it gets pretty rowdy over there at McWhorter, and looking forward to seeing it come alive again. I think, as I mentioned with Coach Rittman last year, that Auburn game, I believe it was the second to last game in Clemson last year before they went off to the NCAA tournament. But that crowd was electric, and I expect to see that there this weekend. So good weekend for softball. And it's now time to transition to what would be our Twitter poll of the week had I not gotten busy and forgotten. So, weekend weather report. Friday, there is a chance of rain. As of now, as I'm recording this on Wednesday the 15th, there's a 70% chance of rain in Clemson. So hopefully that will not, pun intended, rain on our parade, because this is the day that I've been looking forward to for a long time. So hopefully the weather cooperates. Temperatures are nice, high of 65 that day. So with softball hosting a lot of teams and multiple games going on each day, the weather may affect softball. With baseball only having one game, it gives you a little bit more time to work with throughout the day to either bump the game up or bump it back due to weather. So hopefully we don't have to do that. Hopefully at 4 o'clock, Clemson baseball first pitch is happening, and the softball team is able to get their games in. The rest of the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, are going to be sunny, no chances of rain. Saturday, high of 54, so it's going to be a little bit chilly. And then Sunday warms back up a little bit, high of 60. So overall, you couldn't ask for better weather. Hopefully this Friday weather cooperates with us, but great temperatures. As Coach Bakich has mentioned on here before, in Michigan, they would love for this weather. So I know he's excited to get out there and temperatures in the 60s. So great weekend for softball and baseball. Before we get to baseball, I want to shout out our sponsor, Pump Monkey Septic Service. Really appreciative of Pump Monkey for sponsoring the Ball Talk podcast. Couldn't think of a better sponsor for this show. Pump Monkey Septic Service is owned and operated by Clemson alumni who still live here in the upstate and service the upstate. So, septic service, that's one of those things you never really think about till you need it. Make sure that you remember Pump Monkey when you need a septic tank service. They're very easy to get a hold of. You can reach them on Facebook and Instagram, as well as phone via text or call. Their phone number is 864-710-2211. Again, 864-710-2211. When the dump's funky, call Pump Monkey. Baseball is officially back. I could not be more excited. I think I've said before, this is maybe my favorite day of the year. We have softball going on at the same time, and my boss pretty much knows this first day of baseball season, I'm taking off. So I will be off work Friday, have nothing to do but to watch Clemson baseball and softball. Could not be more excited. Coach Bakich and the staff and some of the players were on Out of Bounds on the Roar this weekend with William Quackenbush. Was listening to those on my way home from work today, and I'm excited. There is a buzz around this team that I hadn't felt in a long time. The vibe of the players, even just the way they're talking in interviews and the things they're saying, I think that this philosophy that Coach Bakich is imparting and bringing into this program is obviously working. So everything I've heard has done nothing but excite me. So really looking forward to getting out there at Doug Kingsmore Stadium. Cannot wait to see the Tigers out there. I assume wearing their orange jerseys, white Clemson cut pants, maybe some all orange hats. Who knows? With the new staff, maybe there's some days that they kind of mix up the uniforms. Who knows? I don't know. That's not even really the important thing, but it's something I look forward to. The smell of the grass, the smell of Cajun Cafe, Doug Kingsmore Stadium just kind of coming alive. It's going to be a 4 o'clock first game, but there's a buzz around that stadium. There are plenty of people just like me that are not working that day, and they're there to watch Clemson baseball. And I think there's a lot of excitement around this program. I think that, I don't know, I was going to say I think expectations are high, but after talking with other fans, reading some forums, I think the expectations are pretty reasonable. with this staff, with the players you had returning, with the recruiting class that's come in. One thing you can't knock Monty Lee on, he got great recruiting classes in here, so he left Coach Bakich with a good group of guys. So I think that expectations are right where they should be. I think this team has the ability to make it to the NCAA tournament, something that they have not done in recent years under Coach Lee. So that is the first step, I think. And this is not me lowering the bar, but trying to be reasonable. I think making the NCAA tournament is a success this year. Anything above that is obviously icing on top. Sure, I would love to see Clemson get out of the regional for the first time in a long time and make a super regional appearance, but I think that fans need to stay grounded. I think that you got to consider where you're at. You're in the Atlantic Coast Conference. You got a lot of tough competition. We have some midweek opponents that are strong opponents that have in the last year or so come back and bid us. So keep your expectations in check, but I do think that postseason play is definitely in the future for this team. So they open the season Friday at 4 o'clock with Binghamton. A little bit of review for Binghamton, because if I'm being totally honest, I've never heard of them before this season. They're out of New York, and last season they finished 22-30, finished 500 in the conference. They're in the America East Conference. They were the 2022 America East Conference tournament champions, so they did win their conference, and they're predicted to win the conference again this season. So last season they advanced to the Stanford Regional. They did drop both games versus Stanford and University of California, Santa Barbara, so they did not advance past that. They're favored, like I said, to win again this year. They're led by Tim Sinicki. He is a 31-year veteran, and they return a lot of guys. So this is going to be an experienced team. Yes, their record was 22-30, but this is a lot of guys who have spent a lot of time together playing ball. So they returned 25 lettermen, 3 all-conference selections. The team's first 7 hitters in the lineup and its entire weekend rotation from 2022 have returned this season. So you got experienced pitching staff, and you're going to have 7 strong guys at the plate who have a lot of experience under their belt. So the big question mark for this season in the first year under Coach Erik Bakich is the pitching staff. Brian Hennessy usually sends out a bunch of information prior to the weekend. As I sit here on Wednesday, he has not sent that out. And a lot of times, or most times, if the coach is willing to put it out there, it includes the weekend rotation. So I do not have that information as of now. But based on everything we've heard, Coach Bakich said it here on the program. Expect Ryan Ammons, who was in a relief role in years prior, to be one of our weekend starters this weekend. I'm leaning towards it probably being Friday, but that's just me. I have no information or reason to really believe that. So I'm really interested. I'm looking forward to getting that email, finding out what the weekend rotation will be like. Also, with it being a new coaching staff, what information they like to publicize prior to a game may change. Coach Lee was typically pretty good about offering up that information heading into the series so that the fans were in the know about who to expect. Last year, with the struggles with the pitching, they did not release it quite as often. The beginning of the season, they were announcing it pretty much every week. But then as the season went on, as the pitching woes continued, they kind of left it open-ended and did not name starters for weekend series. So who knows? I'm not really sure what that's going to look like. I would assume Coach Bakich would kind of take more of the Jack Leggett approach, which I was not in the know, was not privy to that information back when Coach Leggett was running things. So I don't know how he did it when he was here a few years back. So another thing, I expect to see a different presence at the plate. I think gone are the days of players swinging for the fences. That was a big knock on Monty Lee's teams. It just seemed like guys were swinging for the fences. When you were up and you had a lead, that was great because you were just increasing that lead. However, when you're down and you're struggling to find a spark to come back and you're just whiffing and not getting those home run balls or those deep balls like you want, it makes the game that much harder to watch. So everything I've heard, they're trying to play smart baseball. There's a big focus on smart base running. So I think you're going to see a lot more bunting. I think you're going to see more stealing and getting back to the fundamentals of old school baseball, which is something we haven't seen a lot at this program for quite some time. So really looking forward to it's been talking season for months now. Ever since Coach Bakich was hired back in, I guess it was June, we've done a lot of talking. I think I've referenced on here before, one of my favorite things to do every day was to log on to Tiger Illustrated and read the off-season baseball thread, which Chris Ard posted in there today that today is the last day they're leaving it up. They will do in-game threads, but I'm sad to see that go. But it has been great to follow along, hear other fans kind of give their input, ask questions, that kind of stuff. But this has been talking season. And Friday at 4 o'clock, the talking is over, and they're going to do the talking with the bat. So I think this team is ready. I think this team is going to surprise some people based on what we saw out of a lot of the guys that were on this team last year. I think we're going to kind of see a new version of those guys, and I'm really looking forward to it. So this weekend, they got Binghamton for 3 games, 4 o'clock on Friday, and I realized that I did not put in my notes the other game. So Friday is definitely at 4 o'clock. Saturday is going to be at 2 o'clock, and Sunday they're going to wrap up the series at noon. That's a little early for a Sunday game, but I assume it's for Binghamton to get back to New York. And actually, I take that back. I was looking at their schedule today. They're staying down here. They're facing Wake Forest for a midweek game, so it's a tough start for Binghamton coming down south and facing 2 ACC teams. I would not be surprised if they head back to New York 1-3, 0-4. So not really. I don't know. I debated on whether we're going to do predictions on this show. I don't know. I'm just going to, I'm going to say Clemson wins 2 of 3 this weekend. And if we sweep them, or if they sweep them, I'll be pleasantly surprised. So there's your unsolicited baseball prediction for this weekend. And then before we reconvene for episode 4, the Tigers will have a midweek game at home Tuesday at 4 o'clock against Charlotte. The 49ers finished 36-22 last season. They dropped 2 of 3 in the Conference USA tournament last year. They did not qualify for the NCAA tournament, but a strong team coming in, a good first midweek game, I think. So looking forward to 4 baseball games in 5 days. So I failed the last few episodes, and fingers crossed I did this successfully this week. I failed to get these episodes in under 30 minutes. When all the editing's done, we'll find out. But I think this one's pretty doggone close. So I'm not going to hold y'all up anymore. But before I do let you go, if you do not already follow us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, please give us a follow. This is how we continue to grow, get the word out there about Clemson baseball and softball. I'm going to go ahead and again say, hey, we appreciate you, the listener. Over on Twitter, we've gained a lot of followers in the last week or so based on our softball and baseball coverage. So to help us continue to do that, please like, subscribe, follow, whatever the social media account you're on does, do that for us, please. And share. Share with us. Get the word out. Share our podcast. Share on YouTube. And appreciate our YouTube listeners and watchers, I guess viewers on YouTube. So appreciate y'all. And join us next Thursday where we'll talk some ball. Peace.